They laughed when you stayed silent. They mistook your patience for weakness, your kindness for surrender, and your distance for defeat. They built stories about your limits because they were too afraid to imagine your potential. But every insult became fuel. Every rejection sharpened your focus. While they celebrated too early, you were quietly becoming someone they could never predict. The greatest advantage is not being the strongest. It's being the one no one sees coming. Today isn't about proving them wrong. It's about revealing the version of yourself they never believed could exist. And that's the moment everything changes forever. Most people never recognize true strength when they see it. They are trained to notice loud voices, flashy confidence, and people who constantly announce their intentions. They assume power has to be visible. They believe the strongest person is the one who dominates every conversation, demands attention, and constantly reminds everyone of their worth. That illusion blinds them. While they chase appearances, they overlook the quiet individual standing in the background, observing every detail without saying much. They don't realize silence is often a sign of control, not weakness. When people underestimate you, they unknowingly hand you one of the greatest advantages imaginable. The moment someone decides you are incapable, they stop paying attention. They stop preparing for you. They stop expecting growth from you. They become comfortable with the version of you they created inside their minds. That false image becomes their biggest mistake because while they believe your story has already been written, you're still writing it. Human nature loves quick judgments. People create opinions within seconds and spend years defending them. They judge your clothes before your character. They judge your current situation before your future potential. They judge your quiet personality before your intelligence. They judge your temporary failures as if they define your entire life. They rarely stop to consider that the person they ignore today may become the one everyone follows tomorrow. The dangerous thing about being underestimated is that it exposes more about them than it does about you. It reveals their inability to see beyond the surface. They confuse confidence with competence. They mistake popularity for value. They believe recognition equals greatness. History has repeatedly shown that many extraordinary people were dismissed before they were respected. Greatness often grows unnoticed because real transformation happens in silence. Every time someone tells you that you're not capable enough, they're speaking from the limits of their own imagination, not yours. They measure your future using your present circumstances. They believe today's version of you is permanent. They cannot imagine what relentless discipline can create over months and years because most people never stay committed long enough to witness that kind of transformation. While others spend their energy proving themselves through words, the underestimated person learns to invest that energy differently. Every insult becomes another reason to improve. Every doubt becomes another workout. Every rejection becomes another lesson. Every disappointment becomes another opportunity to develop resilience. Instead of arguing with opinions, they quietly build evidence that no argument can defeat. There is something deeply unsettling about someone who refuses to react emotionally to criticism. The world expects immediate anger, excuses, or revenge. Instead, imagine responding with patience. Imagine allowing every negative opinion to become another brick in the foundation you're secretly building. That kind of discipline confuses people because they cannot understand someone who chooses growth over validation. The loudest victories are often prepared in complete silence, while everyone else is distracted by comparison, competition, and constant attention. You are mastering skills they never bothered to learn. Day after day, your consistency compounds. Tiny improvements seem invisible at first. No applause follows your early mornings. No crowd celebrates your sacrifices. No audience notices your discipline. But results don't care about recognition. Progress continues whether anyone sees it or not. The greatest mistake your critics make is believing that your current position represents your final destination. They see one chapter and assume they know the ending. They watch you struggle today and conclude you'll struggle forever. They don't account for determination. They underestimate persistence. They ignore the incredible power of someone who refuses to quit while everyone else becomes comfortable. Eventually, the gap between perception and reality becomes impossible to hide. The same people who overlooked you begin asking different questions. They wonder when you changed. They wonder how you became so confident, so capable, so composed. They search for a secret that never existed. They fail to realize the answer was never sudden talent or lucky timing. It was the countless invisible moments when you kept moving forward despite receiving no recognition, no applause, and no guarantee that anyone would ever notice. Rejection has a strange way of revealing the truth. It exposes who gives up at the first obstacle and who decides that every closed door is simply another reason to become stronger. Most people experience rejection and immediately question their own value. They begin believing the opinions of those who dismissed them. They convince themselves that one failure defines their future, that one person's judgment is an absolute measure of their potential. But the strongest individuals see rejection differently. They don't see it as the end of the road. They see it as the beginning of a transformation. Every person who underestimated you unknowingly offered you a choice. You could either accept the label they placed upon you, or you could use that moment as fuel for growth. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary people is rarely talent. More often, it is the decision made in moments of disappointment. Some people allow rejection to become an excuse. Others turn it into motivation that refuses to burn out. Pain has energy. The question is where that energy goes. If you direct it toward anger, resentment, and endless complaints, it destroys you from the inside. But if you channel that same energy into discipline, learning, and relentless improvement, it becomes one of the most powerful forces in your life. The people who doubted you may never realize it, but every criticism they threw at you became another spark that kept your determination alive. There is something dangerous about a person who stops seeking approval. The moment you no longer need everyone to believe in you, you become incredibly difficult to control. Their opinions lose power, their insults lose meaning, their rejection loses its ability to slow you down. You stop asking for permission to become successful and start building a life that speaks louder than words ever could. Many people waste years trying to convince others they are worthy. They argue, defend themselves, explain their intentions, and desperately hope someone will finally understand them. But explanation is often a trap. Every minute spent proving yourself to people who have already made up their minds is a minute stolen from your own progress. Your energy belongs in action, not arguments. Results have a language that no debate can overcome. Imagine carrying every insult like a weight inside a gym. At first, it feels heavy, it hurts, it makes every movement difficult, but over time, those very weights begin making you stronger. The burden that once threatened to crush you becomes the reason your strength continues to grow. The criticism never disappeared. You simply became powerful, enough to carry it without breaking. Some people become obsessed with revenge after being rejected. They dream about humiliating everyone who ever doubted them. But revenge is often another form of emotional dependence. It keeps your attention locked onto people who no longer deserve your focus. True power comes when your success is driven by your own standards rather than someone else's mistakes. You don't rise because you hate your critics. You rise because you refuse to waste your potential. Every setback contains information. Every failure teaches something that success often hides. Rejection forces you to improve your weaknesses, sharpen your skills, and develop patience. It teaches humility without destroying confidence. It reminds you that growth is uncomfortable and that comfort rarely creates excellence. The people who seem unstoppable are usually the ones who have survived more disappointment than anyone realizes. While others spend their time blaming circumstances, you begin asking better questions. Instead of saying, "Why did this happen to me?" you ask, "What can this teach me?" That single shift changes everything. Victims search for excuses. Builders search for lessons. One remains trapped in the past, while the other creates a future that looks nothing like their present. Eventually, rejection loses its ability to frighten you. You become willing to take risks because you understand that failure is temporary, but regret can last forever. Every time life tells, you hear something different. You hear an invitation to grow beyond the limits that others tried to place upon you. You recognize that every obstacle is shaping a version of yourself that is stronger, wiser, calmer, and more resilient than the person who first experienced rejection. By the time others finally recognize your success, they won't understand that it wasn't built during moments of victory. It was forged in every moment when disappointment tried to convince you to stop, and you chose to keep moving anyway. The most powerful transformations are almost always invisible in the beginning. People expect change to arrive with loud announcements, dramatic moments, and instant recognition. They believe success should look spectacular from the very first step. But real growth rarely introduces itself that way. It happens quietly behind closed doors in ordinary moments that nobody applauds. While the world is distracted by noise, the strongest version of you is being built in silence. There is a reason why people continue to underestimate those who remain quiet. Silence makes them uncomfortable because they cannot predict what they cannot measure. They assume that if you are not constantly talking about your plans, then you must not have any. If you are not showing every achievement, then you must not be achieving anything. They mistake privacy for inactivity, never realizing that some of the greatest victories begin long before anyone else notices them. Every morning you choose discipline over comfort, something changes inside you. Every hour you spend learning while others waste time complaining, your future shifts in a direction they cannot see. Every sacrifice you make when no one is watching becomes another layer of strength that cannot be borrowed, purchased, or faked. These moments may seem insignificant on their own, but together they create a foundation that is nearly impossible to shake. Most people crave immediate recognition. They want applause before they have earned results. They announce every goal, celebrate every small beginning, and depend on outside validation to maintain their motivation. But external approval is fragile. The moment praise disappears, so does their determination. The person who learns to work in silence develops something far more valuable. Their motivation comes from purpose rather than attention. Their consistency survives even when nobody notices their effort. Imagine planting a seed beneath the ground for weeks. Nothing appears on the surface. To someone walking past, it looks like nothing is happening. They see empty soil and assume the seed has failed. What they cannot see is the silent work taking place underneath. Roots are spreading, strength is forming, stability is developing before visibility ever arrives. The strongest trees spend their earliest days growing where no one can admire them. Your life follows the same principle. Before the world witnesses your success, you must build roots that can support it. Knowledge becomes those roots. Discipline becomes those roots. Patience becomes those roots. Character becomes those roots. Without them, even sudden success collapses under its own weight. Lasting achievement is never an accident. It is the result of countless invisible decisions repeated long after excitement disappears. People who underestimated you often expect quick results because they only understand visible progress. They believe if nothing impressive has happened yet, then nothing important is happening at all. They judge your journey by what they can observe instead of what you are becoming internally. They fail to understand that confidence is built before it is displayed. Strength is developed before it is tested. Wisdom is earned before it is recognized. There is incredible freedom in no longer needing everyone to understand your process. You stop explaining yourself. You stop announcing every move. You stop trying to convince people that your dreams are realistic. Instead, you allow your actions to become your only explanation. Silence protects your focus. It keeps distractions away. It allows your energy to remain invested in growth instead of performance. The greatest competitors are often fighting battles nobody else can see. They wake up earlier than expected. They study longer than required. They practice after everyone else has gone home. They repeat difficult routines until excellence becomes automatic. None of these moments become headlines. None of them attract applause. Yet these invisible habits eventually produce visible results that appear effortless to everyone who never witnessed the preparation. While others compare themselves to people around them, your only competition becomes the person you were yesterday. That mindset changes everything. Progress no longer depends on defeating someone else. It depends on becoming slightly better every single day. Tiny improvements accumulate with extraordinary power. A single page read each day becomes knowledge. A single disciplined decision repeated daily becomes character. A single hour invested consistently becomes mastery over time. Then one day, the silence ends not because you announce it, but because your results become impossible to ignore. The same people who overlooked you begin wondering where your confidence came from. They assume success arrived overnight because they never saw the months and years spent building it in private. They admire the outcome without understanding the countless unseen choices that created it. What appears sudden to the outside world is often the final chapter of a story written patiently, consistently, and silently long before anyone believed it was possible. There comes a moment in every remarkable journey when reality collides with assumption. It is the moment people who once dismissed you are forced to confront the truth, not because you demanded their attention, not because you argued with them, but because your results have become too obvious to ignore. The image they created of you begins to collapse, and for the first time they realize they never truly understood who you were. People become comfortable placing others into categories. They decide who will succeed and who will fail based on appearances, first impressions, or temporary circumstances. Once they make that decision, they rarely question it again. Their minds become trapped by their own expectations. They continue, seeing the same version of you long after you have evolved into someone completely different. That is why your transformation surprises them. They were paying attention to their assumptions instead of your progress. The most satisfying victories are not the ones announced with loud celebrations. They are the ones that quietly rewrite every opinion people once held about you. Without saying a single word, your discipline begins answering every doubt. Your consistency begins responding to every criticism. Your success becomes a conversation that requires no explanation because the evidence speaks more clearly than emotions ever could. There is something deeply unsettling about watching someone you underestimated become extraordinary. It forces people to question their own judgment. They remember every time they laughed at your dreams. They remember every opportunity they refused to give you. They remember every careless remark they made when they believed you would never rise beyond your current position. Suddenly, the confidence they once had in their opinions disappears. Some will pretend they always believed in you. They will rewrite history to protect their pride. They will speak as though they supported your journey from the beginning, hoping nobody remembers their earlier doubts. Others will remain silent because admitting they were wrong feels heavier than pretending nothing changed. A few may even become jealous, unable to accept that someone they once overlooked has achieved what they never expected. Do not misunderstand their reaction. Your success does not change your worth. It only changes their awareness of it. You were valuable before the applause arrived. You possessed potential before anyone recognized it. Their delayed recognition is not the source of your greatness. It is simply proof that people often discover value long after it has existed. Many individuals become distracted during this stage. They become addicted to proving themselves. Every achievement becomes another attempt to impress former critics. Every milestone becomes another opportunity to seek validation from those who once doubted them. But this creates another prison. Your future should never be controlled by the opinions of your past. Once your success depends on impressing others, you surrender the very freedom you worked so hard to build. Instead, allow their realization to remain their responsibility. You owe no speeches. You owe no explanations. You owe no reminders of how they treated you. Let your composure become more impressive than your accomplishments. Real confidence does not need to humiliate anyone. It simply continues moving forward without becoming trapped by yesterday's opinions. There is quiet power in remaining humble after becoming successful. The world often expects revenge. It expects arrogance. It expects bitterness disguised as confidence. But genuine strength has no need for those things. The strongest people understand that. Carrying resentment only gives yesterday permission to control today. They refuse to waste emotional energy on battles that no longer matter. Ironically, the people who underestimated you may become some of your greatest teachers. Without intending to, they forced you to develop resilience. They challenged your patience. They strengthened your determination. Every obstacle they placed before you became another opportunity to become wiser, calmer, and stronger. Their doubt became part of your education, even if they never realized it. Eventually, the conversation changes completely. The same people who once questioned your abilities begin asking for your advice. The ones who ignored your ideas begin listening carefully. The ones who dismissed your vision begin wondering how you saw possibilities they could not imagine. They search for a secret formula, hoping success can be copied without understanding the sacrifices that created it. They see the confidence, but never witnessed the fear you conquered. They admire the achievement, but never experienced the lonely nights, difficult choices, repeated failures, and relentless discipline that shaped the person standing before them. And that is why the moment they finally realize who you have become is never as powerful as the countless unseen moments when you quietly decided to become that person long before anyone believed you could. One of the greatest misconceptions about strength is the belief that it must always be. Accompanied by revenge, people imagine that the perfect ending is making those who doubted you suffer the same pain they caused you. They picture dramatic confrontations, harsh words, and moments of public humiliation. It sounds satisfying for a moment, but true victory has never depended on someone else's defeat. Real power begins the moment you no longer need revenge to feel complete. When people underestimate you, they leave behind emotional scars. Some wounds are obvious, while others remain. Hidden for years, every insult, every rejection, every betrayal, and every moment of disrespect can quietly settle inside your mind. If you are not careful, those experiences begin controlling your future. Instead of chasing your dreams, you start chasing opportunities to prove people wrong. Instead of building your own life, you build your identity around those who hurt you. That is not freedom. That is another form of imprisonment. The strongest individuals understand that revenge keeps you emotionally connected to the people who underestimated you. Every thought about proving them wrong gives them space in your mind. Every fantasy about watching them regret their decisions allows the past to continue influencing your present. They may not even remember what they said to you, yet you continue carrying the weight of their opinions every single day. There is a far more powerful response. Become so focused on your own growth that their approval becomes meaningless. Let your energy flow toward building skills, improving your mindset, strengthening your discipline, and creating a future that excites you. Every hour spent mastering yourself produces far greater rewards than an hour spent imagining revenge. Your attention is your most valuable resource. Spend it wisely. Success has a unique way of answering questions that words never can. You don't have to remind people how they treated you. You don't have to expose their mistakes. You don't have to seek justice through arguments. The life you create becomes your response. Every achievement quietly says what endless explanations never could. Every goal accomplished becomes evidence that determination is stronger than doubt. There will be moments when people from your past suddenly return. Some will congratulate you as though they always supported you. Others will apologize after seeing what you have become. A few may try to benefit from your success despite ignoring your struggles. In those moments, your character will be tested more than your ambition ever was. Bitterness will whisper that they deserve rejection. Pride will tempt you to make them feel small. Ego will encourage you to remind them of every painful memory. But wisdom understands something different. You do not become greater by making someone else feel smaller. Forgiveness is often misunderstood. It does not mean pretending the pain never happened. It does not mean allowing people to repeat harmful behavior. It does not require rebuilding every broken relationship. Sometimes forgiveness simply means refusing to let yesterday continue stealing today's peace. It is choosing to release emotional burdens that no longer serve your future. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack filled with stones. Every insult becomes another stone. Every betrayal adds more weight. Every disappointment makes the journey harder. Revenge convinces you to keep carrying the backpack until someone finally apologizes. But they may never apologize. They may never acknowledge your pain. Meanwhile, you continue exhausting yourself under a burden you have the power to set down at any moment. The truly unstoppable person travels light. They remember the lessons without carrying the anger. They respect the past without living inside it. They use painful experiences as education rather than permanent identity. There is incredible confidence in remaining calm when others expect anger. It surprises people because emotional control has become rare. Anyone can react, anyone can argue, anyone can seek revenge when emotions are high. But remaining composed while continuing to grow requires a level of strength that few ever develop. Eventually, your life reaches a point where the opinions of former critics no longer influence your decisions. You wake up motivated by purpose instead of pain. You pursue excellence because it reflects your values, not because it impresses your doubters. Your confidence becomes internal rather than dependent on applause. Your happiness stops waiting for someone else's recognition. That is the moment you truly win, not when they admit they were wrong, not when they finally applaud your success, not when they regret underestimating you. You win when your peace becomes untouchable. You win when your discipline becomes stronger than your emotions. You win when your future matters more than your past. The people who once underestimated you become nothing more than distant memories, while the person you fought to become continues growing with quiet confidence, unstoppable purpose, and a level of inner strength that no criticism, rejection, or betrayal can ever take away. The greatest mistake people make after proving everyone wrong is believing the journey is over. They reach one milestone, receive the recognition they once dreamed about, and slowly begin relaxing into comfort. They assume success is something you arrive at instead of something you continuously protect. But life has a simple rule: the moment you stop growing, you begin drifting backward. Excellence is never a destination, it is a daily decision. The people who once underestimated you may finally acknowledge your abilities, but their recognition should never become your new source of motivation. If your confidence depends on applause, then your confidence still belongs to other people. The strongest individuals understand that respect earned from others is valuable, but self-respect earned through discipline is priceless. Long after the cheers disappear, your habits remain. Long after the attention fades, your character continues guiding every decision you make. Never confuse reaching a goal with reaching your potential. Every achievement simply reveals another level that was once invisible. The person you become today should never be the final version of yourself. There is always another skill to master, another weakness to improve, another fear to overcome, and another lesson waiting to be learned. Growth keeps your mind alive. Curiosity keeps your spirit young. Discipline keeps your future expanding. One of the quiet dangers of success is complacency. It rarely announces itself. It arrives disguised as satisfaction. You begin telling yourself that you have done enough. You skip the habits that once built your strength. You become comfortable because life finally feels easier. Little by little, the edge that separated you from everyone else begins disappearing, not because you became less talented, but because you stopped respecting the process that created your success in the first place. The world constantly changes. New challenges appear. New competitors emerge. New opportunities demand new versions of yourself. The mindset that carried you through yesterday's battles may not be enough for tomorrow's. That is why continuous learning is not optional. It is survival. Every book you read, every conversation that challenges your thinking, every mistake you study, and every experience that expands your perspective becomes another investment in the person you are still becoming. There is also another responsibility that comes with becoming someone people can no longer ignore. Others begin watching you. Some look to you for inspiration. Some quietly hope you succeed because your journey reminds them that transformation is possible. Whether you realize it or not, your consistency becomes permission for someone else to believe in themselves. The way you handle success can inspire others just as much as the way you survived failure. Stay humble enough to remember where you started. Stay hungry enough to know there is still more to achieve. Stay disciplined enough to continue doing the small things that most people eventually abandon. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is remembering that every achievement was built one decision at a time. It reminds you that arrogance often destroys what discipline spent years creating. The moment you believe you know, longer need improvement is often the exact moment improvement becomes most necessary. Protect your peace with the same determination you once used to chase your goals. Not every argument deserves your attention. Not every opinion deserves your response. Not every opportunity deserves your time. As your value grows, distractions multiply. People will invite you into unnecessary conflicts, comparisons, and competitions. Learn to recognize the difference between what demands your energy and what merely steals it. Your greatest competition will never be the people around you. It will always be the comfortable version of yourself that whispers excuses whenever growth becomes uncomfortable. That voice will tell you to rest when discipline is required. It will tell you that average is good enough. It will encourage you to settle because settling feels safe. Every day you silence that voice, you strengthen the person capable of achieving extraordinary things. The ultimate goal was never to become someone your critics could no longer underestimate. The real goal was to become someone whose standards are so high that outside opinions lose their power completely. When your identity is built on integrity, discipline, patience, and relentless self-improvement, recognition becomes a bonus instead of a necessity. You walk into every challenge with quiet confidence because you know your strength was earned through consistent effort rather than temporary praise. The world may finally see your value, but by then you have already learned the most important lesson of all, that the person who refuses to stop evolving can never truly be underestimated again because their greatest victory is not what have achieved, but the unwavering commitment to becoming better than they were yesterday.